Hello everyone, in this video we will discuss numbering concept in the RAP. There are different aspects of the numbering. We have early numbering, we have late numbering, or we can implement this numbering concept in managed and unmanaged scenario in different ways. We will discuss theory part as well, and for our managed application which we are working on, for that also we will discuss why we need numbering and we will implement the numbering for that as well. Before going to the theory part, just understand why we need numbering. For that, we have to preview our application, which we have created in this video series. Let me preview application. If you see this application, and when we try to create our new travel instance with the same travel ID, for example, let me click on go button and see what is the latest travel ID we have created. We have created 5002. Let me create one more travel ID with the same travel instance number. Let me click on create and give the same travel instance. I don't know, is a user somebody already created with this particular travel ID. In that case, I will try to create this particular travel instance. I can give any number. I am creating as of now. Random date I can give 31st, description something I can give, customer ID I can give, and let's give some status as a open and click on create button. You can see, I think I have breakpoint. Oh, I don't have breakpoint. The key value is already in use. Please enter the different one. In this scenario, because it is managed scenario, in the early stage of the instance creation, RAP BO environment already checking for us this particular number is already created, this particular instance with this particular travel ID already created in system or not. If it is not created in system, it is giving the error. But my requirement is that instead of giving some random number, this number should be auto generated from the either object or from my program. So whenever I create the new instance, then it will automatically, this travel ID should be created and it should go 5003, 5004, 5 and onwards automatically, instead of some user give this particular travel ID. So for doing that, we have to implement our numbering. Again, there are the different ways for the numbering. What is numbering? Numbering, in simple term, I can say assigning the primary key fields to our entities. In our case, we have the travel, booking and booking supplement entities. For travel, we have the travel ID primary key. For booking, we have the travel ID and booking ID, and booking supplement, we have travel ID, booking ID and booking supplement ID as a primary key. So as soon as you create the travel instance, the travel ID we have to give, or system have to assign that particular ID primary key, and assigning this primary key field or giving some number to the primary key fields, that is called the numbering. There are different numberings are there based on when you are giving this primary keys values, or which guy is giving this primary keys values. For example, in early stage you are giving, then we call early numbering. In late stage you are giving the late numbering, and it is given by the yourself, that is called external, and system is giving, that is called internal. So based on that, the numbering is divided by two parts, we can say early numbering and late numbering. Early numbering, as soon as the modify statement for the create EML statement execute, that time itself that number is generated and given, that is called the early numbering. In the late numbering, when as I told you, in BO business object we have the two phases. One is the interaction phase and second is the save sequence. Interaction phase, we have the different class which will execute, and the that is called the handler class, and the save sequence we call the saver class, the local classes which we have discussed in my previous video if you remember. So we have the interaction phase. The late numbering is assigned not during the interaction phase. It is assigned save sequence, where user is everything is done, he's satisfied everything, and when he click on save button and interaction is over and he want to do the saving of that particular instance, that time that particular number is assigned. Why we do this kind of thing? Because we don't want the gaps between the number. In this early numbering scenario, that might be possible that we will have some gaps between number 5001 and somebody created 5002 and he created 5003, and he don't need 5002 in between, he have deleted. So that kind of things, it might be possible. But in the late numbering scenario, since everything is done, interaction phase is over, that time we will assign the number, then that time we will give this number. So that is called the late numbering. Most of the time the late numbering required in case of the invoice, because in the real time business we should not have gap between the invoice numbers. So then always invoice number should be sequential and there should not be gap. So that is one of the real time requirement for the late numbering. But the early numbering, when we give, again we have divided the based on who is giving that early numbering, external and internal. These are the same thing. When externally somebody give the that particular number, in our case we are giving, for example, when I am creating the travel instance, then I am giving this is the my travel ID primary key field, then it is called external early numbering. But we have to make sure in this case, whatever you are giving that particular key, that should be unique, first thing. Second thing, in our case, if it is not unique also, we are getting the error. That is the powerfulness of the RAP. It is early stage, it is itself checking that particular ID is available in the system or not. Based on that, it is giving the error. In some of the scenario, it is not possible also. We will discuss the early check of this particular number, or we can say uniqueness check of that particular instance is not possible. That also we'll discuss in upcoming scenario. But in this scenario it is possible. That is the reason we are getting the error. And apart from that, the most important thing, if you are doing external early numbering, that particular primary key should be editable in the create stage and should not be editable when you are modifying that particular instance. But currently when we are doing, in our case, both the cases, that is editable. Even I go in edit mode. I will show you also. When I created the travel instance, now I will open 5002. In edit mode, I can edit the primary key. That should not happen. Once you assign that particular instance in the edit mode, it should not be editable, that particular key. So for that, we have this particular, we should give travel ID in our BDL application, which we are gonna give, and mandatory on create, you should fill some field value, primary key value, when you are creating that particular travel instance, and when you are updating something, it should be only read only. So this kind of thing we have to write in our behavior definition. And something called optional external numbering, where we have flexibility in some of the scenario that if you are giving, user also can give that particular primary key value, and if user didn't give, then system automatically assign the primary key value. But if there is some prerequisite there, we should have always that particular primary key field is a UUID, universal unique identifier, is a key. That row 16 type should be primary key, should be there. We can't use in our scenario. And in that case, that the UUID for travel, UUID for booking ID, UUID for booking supplement ID, we should have everywhere this particular UUID, and this should have relationship. Then we can do that kind of thing. Then user also should know that will be the next UUID. Based on that, he should assign. But that is very rare case where we'll give that much flexibility to user to control primary keys. Then we have internal early numbering. These are the external early numbering which we are using currently in our application as well. But that is not that much not controlled. But we want to have some control, then we have to implement internally early numbering. Then again, this internal early numbering, we can say it is divided two parts. It is managed and unmanaged also. Managed means framework will take care, but if you want your primary key fields, framework should take care, then your primary key field should be the type of this row 16, or we will call universal uniquely identifier as a type. Row type should, ABAP type should be row 16, then only it is possible. Then only the managed scenario or managed numbering is possible. But this, what happened in this scenario, where as soon as your create modify operation will executed in your BO instance, that time itself that number automatically generated and got assigned to that particular early itself and assigned to your particular BO instance. And then and after, whenever you are doing whatever you are doing, that instance, that is your primary key field, that will be your primary key field. For doing that, in that case, you should not be editable in create scenario also, because it is assigned internally. So it should be read only, and numbering should be managed, and you have to give that particular primary key field which you have given, that should be row type 16. That is not in our case, which we are developing currently application. But in, I think I will create one more application where we can do this kind of things. I think this is common scenario, that is the reason I didn't do, because I want to implement this numbering like unmanaged thing. That is the reason I want to implement some code to do this numbering implementation. So that is the reason I didn't create it. This travel ID is a means along with the travel ID, some UUID field I didn't create it as a primary key fields. So that's we will do unmanaged web. So unmanaged internal early numbering. In that scenario, you have to handle in unmanaged means there should be some code, because it is not managed by the framework. There should be some code which should handle this particular numbering thing. Or we have already the SAP provided this particular method for numbering method. It is already provided, where you have to write the code to give the number to your primary keys for the travel, booking and booking instance, booking supplements. So for doing that, it will automatically trigger this. Before, when you click on the first create modify statement, it will automatically create this trigger this method where we have to give our initial ID number. And something missed, the assignment of new number must be included in your application code. You have to write for that particular application code, then only obviously it will work. This is called the internal early numbering. Two-way, managed way and unmanaged way. External early number, obviously external user is doing, there is no unmanaged and unmanaged. So in this case we have managed way and unmanaged, because it is internal early numbering. The late numbering. The late numbering, I already explained. When everything interaction phase is over, finally the user want to save the data, draft thing, everything, draft scenarios we will discuss, where we will discuss again this numbering concept. Everything is over, finally user want to save the data, click on the save. That time we will give the number to that particular BO instance. And before that also, before that we will assign some CID, content ID, but I don't want to discuss the draft scenario now, but we will discuss when we create the application, or either we will convert this application itself in the draft. We will see how we can do, but that ID will be assigned once everything interaction phase is over, when we click on the save sequence. Late numbering, common concept drawn. We don't want the number gaps that I already told, and it is obviously by default it is internal only. Late numbering can't be assigned by some consumer who is consuming, so obviously it is internal. And one more important, there is different method called adjust number, which will be triggered during the save sequence. There we have to implement the late numbering. And late numbering available in managed, unmanaged, draft, non-draft, all the scenarios it is available. So this is all about the theory. I know this is too much. Now we will, in our scenario, we will create the early numbering, and the early numbering also we will create in unmanaged way, not the managed. Obviously in managed way we can't create, because we don't have UID field as a row 16 as a primary field, so we have to do unmanaged way. In unmanaged way also we have to implement the code, where we will implement the code in this for numbering method. So let's jump into the system. Let's write some code. Let's write some EML code and do the numbering thing in our application as well. Before starting the early managed internal numbering, I want to show you what mistake we have done in external numbering. So if you go create mode, if you go, it is editable, that is fine. But if you go in edit mode and click on edit button, you can see table ID is editable. So how you can change your primary key after once you have created the table entry with the primary key? So that's not possible, obviously. So it should not happen. it should be only read only. So when you are doing this kind of thing, you have to make sure. Now let's come to the system. For doing the early numbering, we have to tell for each and every entity we have to do the early numbering. But in this scenario, we will implement the early numbering code for our travel, and since this travel is associated by the booking entity, booking is associated by travel, booking we can give the numbering 1 2 3, and this will be identified by the travel, because the booking have the two key fields, one is the travel ID and booking ID, and like that we can do. So for implementing the early numbering, we have to give first that we have to tell the system this is the early numbering. And second thing, since you are implementing the early numbering, your travel ID field should be read only, so you have to field read only, and you have to give your travel ID field should be read only. Shift F1 or not Shift F1, Control Z and Control F3. So in this case, two things we did. We told the system that we are implementing the early numbering. Second thing, since we are implementing the early numbering, our travel ID should be read only. It should not be editable in my Fiori application. Once we have done, we are getting one warning. No need to worry, here and onwards everything you will get the warning if you do something wrong. So we will try to fix the warning. Previously we didn't try to fix, we just going in flow. So first it is telling that your early numbering for create this travel entity is not implemented. So let's implement. Control 1 you have to do, and just add early numbering method for your this particular implementation. Automatically method will be generated, you no need to worry. So this one method we already discussed, we already created for authorization concept. I didn't discuss till now. We'll discuss, and if we try to write code, but we'll discuss first the early numbering create. So if you see this particular method, it is for numbering. First thing, this method is implemented for numbering. If you write like this also fine, and if you write this one for importing, we have to import the entities, and for the create operation, always numbering we have to do for only for the create operations. As I told you in my previous video, the interface of this particular, all the methods which we are going to develop in this particular behavior pool classes will be type of derived type. If you click on entities and if you do F2 over here, as I told you, I will show you, this particular entity type is the derived type, and derived type will contain two type of fields. One is our CDS entity field, and second percentage field. These are the CID, which will give the additional information. So in the create case, so this is our first field called the CID. The CID field will be required in our create case. So content ID, basically I told you, this is the derived type. The derived type will have the entity type field, and it will have the some other fields based on the operations what we are performing. Derived type means, as I told you in my previous video also, derived at the runtime. So this particular instance or this particular structure is derived by the compiler, where we have our travel entity field, along with that some other fields, like we have percentage CID, we call the content ID. There are some important point about the content ID. It is most of the cases it is available when your primary key is still not available to you. You have yet to create your primary key. In this case also, before early numbering create method will trigger, there will be not primary key assigned. So content ID will be having some ID. So with that ID, we can identify that particular BO instance. So that's very important. Even you see the type of ABAP behavior CID, if you click here, this is type of string. Any string will be there. In this case, it will be generated by the ABAP runtime and RAP runtime, because it is managed. If you are working with unmanaged scenario, we have to generate our own CIDs also. So this is one of the content ID. Apart from that particular additional field, we have this control field. So in this entity we have CID and all the fields of our travel entity, and then this control field basically flagged will be there. I will show you in debug also what all are the field you have modified or you have created, that will be flagged equal to 1, and which field is not changed, it will be equal to 0. And when you also modify something, then you have to accordingly in modify statement, on which we will see in future, there also we have to modify this control field also. Apart from this structure, we have some component groups. Basically the component groups are the grouping of this all the percentage, we can say these other data types, other fields which will be useful for identifying the operations. In this case, the percentage data and percentage key is having the component group. Basically percentage data, if you go inside, nothing but all the data which is available, all the fields which is available for that particular entity group under the percentage data. And the same way we have the percentage key also, only all the fields will be grouped under the key fields. So these fields are useful, these groups are useful when we modifying this particular structure. We directly access the key fields using the percentage key and days, all the key fields we can access. Same way, if you want to access non-key field or data field, you can access using the percentage data and days, and you can access. So these are called the component group. Apart from this particular that is nothing. If you access through this one, this component group, or access directly, both are similar only, but it is very convenient when you use this particular component group, which we will see in programming. Apart from that, we have primary key and secondary key, like we are having in the table. Same way we are having for this particular derived table type, we also have the primary key and secondary key. This is all about the importing parameter. If you see the early numbering create method, if you do F2 over here, you can see not only we have importing parameter, there are some by default changing parameter also available. So these are the parameters is implicitly available, even you declared or not declared, for all the methods which you create in the either handler class or saver class. All these parameter, some on and off, some for some methods it will be available map fail, some method it is available reported, some method available all three. So these parameters are implicitly available. Implicitly available means if you don't declare also it is available. If you want to declare explicitly also, you can declare changing, and the same way you have to declare, you have to make sure the data type should be data type ref to data. So it should not be like that, because this type will be generated at runtime only. But in this case we can see this particular all the changing parameter of derived type, of the type response of for mapped, type response for failed, type response for reported. This type response for, it is giving the response to the BO consumer. A BO provider will give the response to the BO consumer in form of these three tables. The failed will have the key field, or we can see that BO instance key which got failed, and the reported we have the additional message, and the mapped table, if you have done successfully something, that will be sent to the mapped. For example, in this create early numbering, we will send the newly generated our primary keys, or we can say travel ID, in this particular mapped table. So this is how this particular three parameter will be available if you declared or not declared, or you can access directly inside your method. Implicitly available means it is available even you don't declare in this particular structure. If you want to declare, and you can declare. Most important thing, this is also type of derived type. If you open this each one, for example the map table, if I open derived type, again this will be type of your BO business object. You can see this is the BO business object, means behavior definition, and this is having three entities. Again we have this particular YI travel taken and booking and booking supplement. We will see how to modify this one runtime. That is not an issue. These all are the derived type. Derived type means it will be having the information, your CDS entity information, filled information along with some additional informations, which we will see when we debug also. In this video, we just define the numbering in our behavior definition, but actual implementation we will do in my next video in the method. Before going to that video, please like this video, share these videos with others as well. With that, thank you and happy learning.